Imagine a criminal so feared that even the night his execution was scheduled, the prison felt colder than usual. Guards avoided eye contact, doctors double-checked every syringe, and the warden himself stood shaking behind the glass window. This wasn't an ordinary inmate. This was the man the media called America's most dangerous criminal, a ghost-like killer who slipped through every trap until the day he was finally caught. For years, he terrorized cities, leaving behind victims with no clues, no evidence, nothing but fear. His execution was supposed to end the nightmare forever. But the moment he was strapped to the table, something felt wrong. His eyes didn't show fear. They showed anticipation. When the injections entered his veins, nothing happened. No slowdown, no reaction, no sign of death. Then the lights flickered, alarms screamed through the prison, and in the middle of the chaos, he smiled. Seconds later, the power collapsed entirely. Cameras died, and the unthinkable happened. When the backup lights returned, the straps were cut, the table was empty, and the deadliest man in America had vanished from a sealed execution chamber without opening a single door. The nightmare hadn't ended. It had just begun. Long before he became the man America feared, he lived a life that looked painfully ordinary from the outside. A quiet boy from Nevada, always in the background, always unnoticed. But deep inside him, something dark was growing, something no one around him saw until it was too late. Teachers described him as emotionless. Neighbors remembered a boy who watched people more than he talked. And his own family reported that he never showed fear, sadness, or guilt. It was as if he was born without the part of the mind that understands humanity. His first crime wasn't discovered until years later, a disappearance that police labeled "ran away." But he didn't stop. He targeted the weak, the lonely, those who would not be missed. Every crime was committed with the same cold precision. He never used the same method twice, never left a pattern investigators could rely on, and never allowed anyone to survive. Bodies were found staged like messages, each one meant to confuse the police rather than guide them. Even the FBI admitted they were dealing with a mind that thought 10 steps ahead. Local police departments across 3 states began connecting unsolved cases: empty houses, missing women, symbols carved into wooden door frames. The strange marks didn't match any known gang, religion, or code. Some detectives believed he was mocking them. Others believed the symbols held meaning, but no one could decode them. That mystery only added to his legend. People started calling him the Phantom. He moved like a shadow, left without a trace, and somehow always stayed one step ahead. The FBI task force created to catch him ran into dead ends at every turn. Cameras never caught him. DNA didn't exist. Fingerprints were never found. It almost looked like he knew exactly where the blind spots were, even in towns he had never visited before. Investigators began to suspect he spent years studying police procedures, forensic techniques, and criminal patterns. They were right. When agents finally raided one of his abandoned safe houses, they found walls covered with police manuals, maps, and crime scene photos he had stolen from departments that had no idea their files were missing. What terrified the agents most wasn't the evidence. It was the fact that the house had been cleared out only minutes before they arrived. He knew they were coming. He always knew. And instead of running far, he left a small note stuck to the refrigerator door. Just 3 words. Catch me now. That moment changed everything. The country realized he wasn't hiding from law enforcement. He was challenging them. He wanted to be chased. He wanted to be studied. He wanted his legend to grow. He fed off fear like oxygen. People locked their doors earlier, neighborhoods installed cameras, and the media turned him into a dark myth. But the FBI kept pushing. After nearly 2 years of terror, an undercover operation finally cornered him during a midnight storm in New Mexico. He surrendered without resistance, smiling calmly as agents pointed guns at him. That smile never left his face during transport, interrogation, or trial. It was the smile of a man who believed that capture wasn't the end of his story, only the beginning. The day of his trial was supposed to bring closure, but instead it became a national spectacle. Courtrooms were packed, lines stretched around the block, and reporters from every major network crowded the halls. Everyone wanted to see the man who had terrorized America. But when he entered, escorted by heavily armed marshals, the room fell into an eerie silence. He didn't look like a monster. He looked calm, collected, almost bored. He scanned the room with slow, deliberate movements, as if memorizing every face in the crowd. Prosecutors presented mountains of evidence, photos, patterns, timelines, testimonies from experts who called him a rare form of predator. They said he didn't kill for anger, revenge, or thrill. He killed for control, for dominance, for the satisfaction of proving he could outsmart the system. But the most disturbing part came when psychologists testified. They revealed something chilling. He showed no response to images of his victims, no empathy, no discomfort, no remorse. One expert said, "It's like he understands human emotions, but only enough to mimic them. He does not feel them." Despite his silence throughout most of the trial, there was one moment he chose to speak. When the judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, he leaned forward, his voice steady and confident, and said, "Death can't hold me. You're wasting your time." The courtroom froze. Even the judge paused before continuing. The state wasn't intimidated. They didn't debate. They didn't hesitate. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The public celebrated. Families of the victims cried with relief. Newspapers printed headlines like, "America finally safe," and "The Phantom will die." But inside the maximum security prison where he was transferred, guards whispered a different story. Some claimed he never slept. Others said he memorized guard schedules, ventilation routes, emergency exits, things he should never have had access to. There were rumors he could hear conversations from across the hall, that he read people like open books. Months before the execution date, strange things began happening inside the prison. Cameras glitched for seconds at a time, always when he walked past. Security lights flickered whenever he stepped into hallways. One guard suffered a panic attack after claiming he found a symbol carved into the inside of his locker, one identical to the marks found at early crime scenes. When investigators checked, the metal was scratched deeply, but no one had seen anyone enter the secure room. Even the warden admitted he had a bad feeling about the execution. He ordered triple security, restricted access, and increased surveillance around the death chamber. But the inmate remained unnervingly calm. He ate normally, spoke occasionally, and continued to smile despite the fact that he was weeks away from death. To him, the execution wasn't an ending. It was a step, a transition. He even told one guard, "You'll remember the night I leave. Everyone will." At the time, it sounded like a threat. Later, they realized it was a warning. The night of his execution arrived with a tension so heavy that even the air inside the prison felt different. Every guard on duty was handpicked, background checked, and briefed multiple times. No one was taking chances. The warden doubled security, added new checkpoints, and sealed off every hallway leading to the death chamber. No inmate in American history had ever been guarded as heavily as he was in those final hours. Yet despite all the precautions, there was an unspoken fear among the staff, fear that something was going to go wrong. He was escorted from his cell at exactly 11:15 p.m. His wrists and ankles were chained, surrounded by 6 armed officers. But he didn't resist. In fact, he walked with steady steps, as if he had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. His eyes stayed fixed forward, cold and unreadable. Some guards said it felt like he was leading them, not the other way around. Inside the chamber, he lay on the steel table without hesitation. The medical team checked the equipment twice. Then again. No mistakes. Everything was sterile, secured, and ready. 3 syringes, 3 stages, a flawless procedure. At 11:59 p.m., the warden gave the signal. The first injection entered his veins. Nothing happened. His heartbeat stayed normal. He didn't flinch, didn't twitch, didn't even blink. The medical staff exchanged confused looks. They checked the tubes, no blockages. Checked the heart monitor, no malfunctions. Then they administered the second injection. Again, nothing. The heartbeat on the monitor didn't even dip. A sense of dread filled the room. The silence was suffocating. That was when the lights began to flicker. First once, then twice, then violently. The entire chamber shook as if something deep within the building was failing. Alarms erupted across the prison, echoing through every hallway. The power cut out completely. Everything drowned in sudden darkness. Shouts rushed through the corridor. Guards scrambled, flashlights flickering. The backup generators should have activated instantly, but they didn't. Not for 30 long, terrifying seconds. And in those 30 seconds, something impossible happened. Because when the emergency lights finally flickered to life, the table was empty. The straps were sliced clean through, as if cut with precision tools that no one could have smuggled in. The tubes were on the floor, the needles were snapped, and the most dangerous man in America had vanished. Security footage confirmed what everyone feared. Every camera leading to the execution chamber shut down at the exact same second. The door locks froze. The internal radio system died. Not for minutes, just long enough for him to disappear. Investigators searched every inch of the chamber. No vents were loose, no hidden tunnels, no unlocked doors. He had escaped a room designed to be inescapable, a sealed steel box with only one exit guarded by armed officers. Then came the message. On the cold metal table where his body had been, someone had carved 2 words so deeply that sparks flew when they tried to sand them down. Not today. The impossible had happened. He didn't survive the execution. He escaped from it. And the hunt for the most untouchable criminal in modern history had officially begun. The moment the news broke that he had escaped, the entire country seemed to stop breathing. Highways were emptied as police checkpoints appeared in every direction. Helicopters hovered over forests, deserts, and abandoned industrial zones. Every federal agency capable of tracking a fugitive was activated. The FBI, U.S. Marshals, DHS, and even military surveillance units were quietly pulled in. Yet despite the largest manhunt in years, there was nothing. No sightings, no footprints, no security footage. It was as if he had evaporated into the night. But that illusion ended just 48 hours later. A small house on the outskirts of Colorado reported a break-in. What the responding officers found inside froze their blood. The homeowner was untouched, but the walls were covered with the same symbols he carved at earlier crime scenes. Nothing was stolen, only rearranged. Drawers emptied, photos removed from frames, chairs moved into strange formations. It wasn't a robbery. It was a message. I'm still here. Within hours, a second scene appeared. This time, a mechanic's shop in Utah. Again, no forced entry, no theft. But a single line was scratched into the concrete floor. Stop looking for a dead man. Experts determined the message was carved within minutes. Clean, fast, confident. They also confirmed something far more disturbing. He wrote it while police were already circling the area. He was close enough to see them, but they never saw him. The public panic grew. Families barricaded their doors. Night shift workers quit their jobs. Stores sold out of locks, alarms, and flashlights. Every news network ran emergency broadcasts showing his face, reminding people to report any suspicious activity. But his face didn't terrify them the most. His silence did. He left no trace of where he was going next. He stopped leaving bodies. He stopped leaving clues. He simply moved like a shadow, without a destination. Investigators believed he wasn't hunting victims, he was hunting information. Several of the locations he visited were connected to police, former officers, or people who testified against him. He wasn't killing them. He was studying them, sending warnings, proving he knew where they lived, worked, and slept. It felt like he was watching everyone who had tried to stop him. Then, a retired profiler from his trial made a chilling observation. He told a press conference, "He doesn't run. He follows. He observes. He waits." He explained that the criminal was driven not by violence alone, but by absolute psychological control. The escape only elevated him. It gave him a myth, a presence that fed his ego. He wanted the world to know he could step in and out of their lives whenever he wished. When agents reviewed all the crime scenes again, they noticed something terrifying. Every symbol he left pointed in a single direction across the map. Not random, not chaotic. A pattern. He wasn't just moving, he was heading somewhere. Weeks passed, and his trail grew colder. Not because he went deeper into hiding, but because he stopped leaving anything behind. No symbols, no messages, no break-ins. It was as if he had disappeared for good. Investigators didn't celebrate. They knew better. Men like him don't stop. They wait. They adapt. They watch from places no one thinks to check. The FBI task force stayed active around the clock, working through every lead, no matter how small, but every report ended the same way. Negative, no trace. Then, exactly 1 month after the failed execution, a letter arrived at the FBI headquarters in Washington. No address, no fingerprints, no envelope DNA, just a single sheet of paper with 4 words written in the same sharp handwriting found at earlier scenes. "You forgot something important." It wasn't a threat. It was a taunt, a reminder, a hint. Agents realized he had not disappeared. He had simply chosen silence as a strategy. He wanted them off balance, doubting themselves, unsure of his next move. The task force revisited everything: his past, his patterns, his symbols. That's when they discovered something chilling. Each symbol corresponded to specific geographic coordinates. When plotted on the map, all points led to one location, an isolated remote mountain region in Wyoming. A place with no cameras, no witnesses, no patrols. A place where a man like him could vanish for years and still watch the world from a distance. A tactical team was dispatched. They expected a hideout, supplies, maybe a camp. Instead, they found something worse. Deep inside a narrow cave, they discovered carved messages covering every wall. Hundreds of symbols, names of his victims, dates, newspaper headlines, and one final message carved into the stone far smoother, far deeper than the rest. "Death came for me. I walked past it." There were no fingerprints, no footprints, no body, no clues indicating he was still there. But one thing proved he had visited recently: a still warm lantern left burning near the entrance, glowing faintly like he had just stepped out moments before the team arrived. After that discovery, the government quietly closed the case from public access. They didn't announce it, but everyone involved understood the truth. Catching him wasn't possible anymore. He had become something else. Less of a fugitive, more of a ghost story that moved in and out of reality. Agents who worked the case said he knew their strategies before they even deployed them. Some believed he had inside help. Others believed he simply anticipated human behavior better than any profiler ever could. Years later, strange reports still appear. Unexplained symbols on abandoned barns, rearranged furniture inside locked homes, flickering security footage showing a shadow moving where no one should be. Nothing ever ties back to him directly. Nothing is enough for an arrest. But everything feels like him. And every year, on the anniversary of his escape from the execution chamber, a new letter arrives at FBI headquarters with the same haunting phrase: "I died once. I won't die again." He isn't just America's most dangerous criminal. He's America's unfinished nightmare. A man who escaped death and never looked back.